file to our ASP.NET Web Application project. To do that, go to Solution Explorer, right click on your project and select Add New Item, and from the Add New Item dialog box, select XML file. Give that XML file a meaningful name. In our case, let's call that countries.xml. Click Add. So that adds the XML file to your ASP.NET Web Application project. But make sure you right click on the project, not on the solution, because if you right click on the solution and select Add, you will get an option to add a project to a solution, because a solution is a collection of projects. Alright, so within this XML file we need to add countries data. Just to save some time in typing, I have this in a notepad, so let's copy that from there and paste it here. So we have the XML file ready. Now we need to display this XML data within a drop-down list. So let's flip to the web form. Let's drag and drop a drop-down list control onto the web form. Right click on the web form, select View Code. Let's go to the code behind page. In the page load, we want to read from that XML file and display that within the drop-down list. So to read the data from the XML file, the easiest way is to use the dataset object. So we have the dataset object. So dataset ds is equal to new dataset. And by the way, this dataset object is present in system.data namespace. So make sure you use this using statement. Alright, so once I have this dataset object has got a read XML method. Now this method is capable of reading the XML data from an XML file, and then it loads the data into the dataset. But then obviously, if it has to read data from an XML file, it needs to know the path of the XML file. So if you look at the IntelliSense here, the parameter that it expects is the name of the file from which you want to read the data. So in our case, the name of the file is countries XML. So let's copy the name and pass that. And if you look at this, obviously file name is a string, so we enclose that within double quotes. Okay, so with this line we have the XML data in the data set. Now once we have the data in the data set, it's pretty simple to bind it to the drop-down list. All you have to do is drop-down list 1 dot data source is equal to data set, and drop-down list 1 dot data bind. Okay, cool. But then another important thing that we have to do is we have to specify the data text field and data value field. Because if you look at the XML data, we have got country ID and country name. So which value do you want to show in the drop-down list, and which value you want to actually hold as the value of the list item object? Okay, how do we specify that? Using the data text field and data value field properties of the drop-down list object. So drop-down list 1 dot data text field is equal to, what is the data text field that we want to display? The country name. So let's copy that, let's paste it here, and then the next thing that we have to specify is the data value field. And data value field is nothing but the country ID, so let's copy that and paste it there. That's it. Now if we run this, it's going to break, and I'll tell you why it breaks in a bit. So let's run this. So it tries to read the data from the XML file, but then it will not find that XML file. Look at this, could not find file. If you look at the exception, system.io.file not found exception. Now if you look at the path, it's looking at this path. Do we have the path, file at this path? No. Where is the file present? If you go to the Solution Explorer, right click on the solution and say Open Folder in Windows Explorer, the file is actually present, the XML file is present at this path c:\/adodemo/adodemo, because this is the name of the solution, the solution folder, and this is the web application folder. So at this physical path you have this XML file. Okay, remember, at this physical path, this is the physical path because this path exists on this computer. Okay, now let me show you another way of accessing this XML file. Now if you want to access this XML file, let's close this browser window first. Right click on the XML file and say View in Browser. Look at this. Now the XML file shows up in the browser window, but look at the path. Okay, so this is your URL to access that XML file in the browser. Okay, so these URLs are actually virtual paths in the sense they don't really exist on this computer. This URL is somehow mapped to this directory, ADO demo, and then within that it has got countries.xml. Okay, so if you look at the physical path of that one, it's this one, c:\\ADO demo countries.xml. But this somehow got mapped to this path, so it's capable of displaying that. Okay, now obviously if you have to read from that XML file, what you will have to do is you will have to map this virtual path to a physical path, and to do that we can make use of a method called map path. Okay, server.mappath. And if you look at the IntelliSense, this method returns the physical path that corresponds to a specified virtual path on the web server. So countries.xml, give me the actual physical path of this file. Okay, so this one is going to return that physical path. Actually, to prove that, let's assign this value to a variable. Let's create a variable here, string, let's call this str physical path. We'll pass that there, and then we will use that variable to pass to this method. Okay, let's throw in a breakpoint here so that we know what's happening when we run the project. So when we run the project, what's going to happen? This method is going to get the virtual path, and then from that virtual path it returns the physical path. And if you remember, let's go to the solution explorer. If I right click on the project and let's say open folder in Windows Explorer, look at that. The physical path of this file is actually c:\ADO demo countries.xml. So if we go back to Visual Studio, look at that. It gives me the actual physical path of that file. Okay, now if I press F5, you should expect the drop down list to show all the countries as expected. So remember, the server.mappath method is used to return the physical path for a given virtual path. We will talk about this server.mappath in a great detail in a later session.